What is going on here? That was my thought after watching episode 4. We have a failed rebellion, a daughter who wants to testify against her own father in Bilanzrat, a highly emotional Valya and Tula, terrified acolytes who all have the same dream, and apparently a face dancer. As the series progresses, I get the impression that the lore created by Frank Herbert in his Dune books is more of an inspiration than a source for the series. But I don't want to use this video for a lore discussion, because in my opinion it's up to each individual to decide whether they judge the quality of a series by the accuracy of the lore. An adaptation does not have to be a one-to-one copy of the original to be entertaining and good. What bothers me about the 4th episode, however, is that the characters don't follow their own logic. This was foreshadowed at the end of the 3rd episode and continues in this one. Valya and Tula act emotionally, make rash decisions, and seem to get away with it. Apart from that, the 4th episode also touches on something that caught my attention and that I personally find very interesting. It has to do with fear. I have marked the chapter titles, so if you are more interested in this, you can simply skip to the fear chapter. But enough with the intro, let's start with the inaccuracies of the show. Valya is obviously in a difficult position. Having just been thrown out of the palace, she now has to deal with her family to regain control. Let's leave aside the fact that Bilanzrat is meeting by coincidence and Valya has a chance to put the Bene Gesserit back in a better position. There are only 6 episodes in the series, the pace of the story simply needs to be accelerated. The scenes where Valya talks to her family are more interesting and emotionally charged, especially the scene where she is supposedly alone with her uncle is a problem for me. Her emotional outburst clearly comes from her past. What I find difficult to understand, however, is that Valya has been with the Bene Gesserit for most of her life, and yet reacts so erratically when confronted with her family. She herself says that the Bene Gesserit need to learn to control themselves and their own bodies before they can control others. As Mother Superior, she should be able to control herself and choose her words carefully. The fact that she then shouts at her uncle that all Harkonnen are cowards while backing away from him makes her position and power as Mother Superior seem implausible in that moment. Of course, it's a scene that shows her in a very private moment, but at the same time, we must not forget that she was not alone there. Sister Theodosia was there for the whole conversation and heard practically everything about Valya's trauma. A Mother Superior would never expose herself to an acolyte like that and show weakness. The same goes for Tula, who I discussed in episode 3. She ignores the risk to the Bene Gesserit by trying to save Lila with a thinking machine. In episode 4, we see that it worked, but the consequences of her actions may still be serious. For example, how will she logically explain to the other sisters that Lila has returned without mentioning the thinking machine any rule? However, I can imagine that it won't even play a major role in the series in the end, because Tula sees the key to a reckoning in Lila. One born twice, once in blood, once in spice. Generally speaking, I find it strange how close the connection is between the fully trained Bene Gesserit and their acolytes. Of course, the bonds between the sisters must be strong, so that no outsider can break the alliance, but a bond is always a weakness that can be exploited. In Frank Herbert's books, the Bene Gesserit's connection also works more through their philosophy and goal of maintaining the stability of the universe than through interpersonal relationships. So when Valya sees Theodosia in Griffin's form, realizes that it is actually Theodosia, and then affectionately calls her Theo, she is effectively throwing the principles of the Bene Gesserit overboard. In an earlier episode, we learned that Bene Gesserit are never allowed to know who their real mothers are, because they don't want there to be a stronger connection than that to the sisterhood. But to me, it is clearly maternal feelings that Valya shows towards Theodosia and Tula towards Lila. So not only does the show deviate from Frank Herbert's books, it contradicts itself in its own logic. Something else that I really enjoyed was the mystery surrounding the nightmares that are plaguing the Acolytes. A lot is told in a symbolic way, and it is suggested that we may even be witnessing the creation of the Litany Against Fear. We learn that all of them were unable to continue dreaming because of fear, and that the brain short-circuited, jolting you out of the dream. Finally, we see the glowing blue eyes. The Litany Against Fear speaks clearly about facing fear and that there is a way beyond fear. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. My theory is that if the Bene Gesserit can conquer their fear and face these mysterious blue eyes, then the mystery of the reckoning will be solved. We'll find out what it's all about and who or what exactly is behind it. At the moment, I can imagine that a thinking machine is involved. Firstly, because thinking machines are a recurring theme in the show. Secondly, because they are seen as a latent threat to all humanity, and the Bene Gesserit are trying to prevent exactly that. They want to preserve humanity, whereas the thinking machines have waged a war of extermination against humanity. And my third argument is an audio-visual one. The way the blue eyes glow and the sound we hear reminds me of something very machine-like. We also see this shade of blue in other thinking machines that appear throughout the series. But if you have a different theory, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to read your thoughts about it. I'm surprised at how quickly the 4th episode has picked up speed, and that we really only have 2 episodes left. Even though I'm criticizing the show, I'd like to emphasize that I really like it, and that I think the attention to detail and the visual design of the show is great. Thank you for watching the video to the end. See you in the next video for the 5th episode of Dune Prophecy.